Look at the busgirl. Sophia's voice cut through Bella Vista's dining room like broken glass. Still wearing those tragic sneakers? Does she own anything that isn't falling apart? Maya Johnson's hands trembled as she stacked plates, their cruel laughter burning her ears. She had been clearing tables at this upscale restaurant for 2 years, invisible except when convenient to mock. I heard she's been here forever and never got promoted, Jessica added with theatrical sympathy. Maybe if she put some effort into her appearance, she wouldn't be stuck bussing tables. Some people just aren't meant for customer service, Veronica laughed, adjusting her perfect ponytail. You need a certain presence, class, things you can't teach. Maya kept her head down, focusing on her rhythm. Clear, wipe, reset. It was the only way to survive 8 hours of being human furniture. Manager Patricia's voice cracked across the room. Maya, table 7 needs attention, and try not to take forever. We have standards. Yes, ma'am, Maya replied quietly, loading her cart with practiced efficiency. Around her, Bella Vista hummed with evening conversations. Well-dressed customers discussed business deals while she moved between tables like a ghost. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the city's glittering skyline. At table 15, a man in his 30s sat alone reviewing documents while picking at his dinner. He wore a simple button-down shirt and dark slacks, nothing remarkable except for the expensive watch he'd unconsciously covered with his sleeve when other diners looked his way. His business papers were spread carefully, and Maya noticed they bore corporate letterheads from companies she recognized but couldn't quite read from her distance. The man's eyes moved constantly, observing staff interactions with customers throughout the dining room. He seemed to catalog every interaction, every service failure, every moment of connection or indifference. When servers passed his table, he watched their body language and listened to their conversations with other guests. The November wind rattled the windows, sending cold drafts through the dining room. Maya shivered in her thin uniform as she approached the corner section where temperatures always dropped near the glass. Freezing in here tonight, complained a customer to her husband. You'd think they'd regulate the temperature better. Maya glanced toward table 15 and noticed the solitary diner visibly shivering despite his long sleeves. His shoulders were tense with cold, and he periodically rubbed his hands together for warmth. Other customers had moved away from the windows or worn jackets, but this man seemed determined to remain in his chosen spot, as if testing something. She looked at her own worn denim jacket hanging in the employee area. It wasn't much, barely adequate for her walk home, but it was something. Maya approached his table with quiet determination. You're shivering, she said gently. It's freezing over here by the windows. The man looked up, startled by her directness. I'm managing fine. No, you're not, Maya replied, studying his face. Something about his discomfort seemed deliberate, as if he was enduring it for a reason. Wait just a moment. Before he could protest, she retrieved her jacket and returned to drape it carefully across his shoulders. Here, you shouldn't have to be cold while you're trying to eat. The man stared at her with an expression that seemed both surprised and deeply moved. I couldn't take your jacket. You'll need it when you leave. I move around during my shift, staying warm isn't a problem. But you're sitting still, and you look miserable. Maya's voice carried genuine concern. Your comfort matters. This is remarkably kind, he said, his voice carrying an odd intensity. Most people wouldn't notice if a stranger was uncomfortable. I notice things, Maya replied simply. Sometimes small kindnesses are all we have to offer each other. He pulled her jacket closer, immediate relief visible in his posture. What's your name? Maya. Maya Johnson. Thank you, Maya Johnson. You've just reminded me that good people still exist in the world. Maya returned to her duties, feeling the familiar warmth that came from helping someone in need. Around her, the restaurant continued its evening rhythm, but something had shifted. The man at table 15 sat wrapped in a busgirl's worn jacket, making notes in a leather portfolio with the focused attention of someone conducting important research. The next morning brought gray skies and Patricia's panicked voice over the intercom. Emergency meeting. All employees to the main dining room immediately, no exceptions. Maya hurried from the prep kitchen, joining the stream of worried workers. Conversations buzzed with nervous speculation about closures and corporate restructuring. Did you hear? Sophia's voice pitched high with anxiety. David Chen himself is coming, the actual CEO of the entire restaurant group. Why would he visit us? Jessica's confidence had evaporated. He owns 50 locations. This has to be bad news. Maya felt dread settle in her stomach. Corporate visits meant evaluations, and evaluations meant identifying weak links. As the newest employee with the slowest clearing times, she knew exactly where she stood on that list. People, gather around, Patricia called out, her usual composure cracking under obvious stress. We're facing an unprecedented situation. The staff clustered together as Patricia's announcement landed like a thunderbolt. Mr. David Chen, CEO and owner of Chen Restaurant Group, will be conducting a surprise performance evaluation of our location this afternoon. The words sent shockwaves through the assembled workers. Maya's hands grew cold as the implications crashed over her. What kind of evaluation? Sophia asked, her smugness replaced by genuine fear. Everything. Customer service, presentation, efficiency, teamwork. Our employment depends on demonstrating excellence in every area. Patricia's gaze landed on Maya with particular intensity. Maya, I need you to be especially careful today. Your uniform, your speed, your customer interactions. Every detail matters when corporate is watching. The message was unmistakable. Maya was the employee most likely to embarrass the restaurant in front of the CEO. Every eye in the room confirmed this assessment, some with pity, others with relief that they weren't the designated liability. I understand, Maya whispered, her cheeks burning with humiliation. The meeting dispersed with staff scattering like startled birds. Maya spent the morning in heightened anxiety, checking her appearance repeatedly and moving with exaggerated efficiency to prove her worth. That afternoon, tension filled Bella Vista like smoke before a fire. Every employee performed with artificial enthusiasm while Maya felt like she was walking a tightrope over an abyss. Move faster, Patricia hissed as she swept past Maya's section, and smile like you actually want to be here. Through the front windows, Maya spotted the corporate motorcade arriving, black sedan, professional driver, the unmistakable markers of executive power. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she tried to work invisibly, hoping to avoid attention during the evaluation. The corporate entourage swept through the entrance with commanding presence. Maya caught glimpses of expensive suits and serious expressions as they moved through the dining room, but she kept her head down, focusing intensely on clearing table 12. Patricia materialized beside her with a smile so forced it looked painful. Maya, I'd like you to meet Mr. Chen, our CEO. Mr. Chen, this is Maya, one of our dining room attendants. Maya looked up from her cleaning supplies and felt the world stop spinning. It was him, the stranger from last night, the man she'd given her jacket to, who'd sat alone and shivering at table 15. But this version wore an immaculate charcoal suit and carried himself with the unmistakable authority of someone who controlled an empire. Hello, Maya, David Chen said, his voice carrying warmth that cut through the restaurant's tension. It's wonderful to see you again. The words exploded through the dining room like lightning striking twice in the same place. Patricia's composed facade shattered into bewilderment. Staff members who'd gathered to witness the corporate visit exchanged stunned glances. You two know each other? Patricia's voice climbed toward hysteria. How is that possible? We met last night, David replied, his eyes never leaving Maya's frozen face. Maya demonstrated extraordinary kindness to a customer she thought was uncomfortable. She gave him her own jacket to stay warm. You helped the CEO? Sophia's voice cracked with disbelief from across the dining room. Maya helped the actual CEO of the company? I didn't know who you were, Maya managed, her voice barely functional. You just looked cold. Exactly, David said, and the word carried enormous weight. Someone who looked cold. He turned to address the gathered staff, his voice carrying easily through the suddenly silent restaurant. For the past month, I've been visiting our locations unannounced, observing how our employees treat customers when they believe no one important is watching. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Maya watched her coworkers' faces transform as the implications sank in. Weeks of unguarded behavior, authentic interactions, true character on display without pretense. Last night, I sat at the table 15, deliberately dressed down and positioned in an uncomfortable location to test something specific. David continued, building dramatic intensity. I wanted to see if anyone would notice a customer's genuine discomfort and offer assistance without expectation of reward or recognition. His attention returned to Maya, who stood beside her cart feeling like her entire understanding of reality had been rewritten. Dozens of people walked past my table: servers, managers, other customers. Everyone focused on their own concerns, their own priorities. But Maya Johnson saw a stranger in distress and immediately offered help, asking nothing in return. Sir, Patricia interrupted, her voice trembling with desperate damage control, if we had known you were evaluating us, if you had known, you would have treated me differently. David cut through her excuse with surgical precision, which proves exactly what I was testing. True character reveals itself not in how we treat people who can benefit us, but in how we treat people who cannot. Maya felt tears threatening as the magnitude of the moment overwhelmed her. The man she'd helped out of simple human decency was revealing her small act of kindness to everyone who'd dismissed her as worthless. Maya, David said, his voice growing gentle but retaining absolute authority, would you join me for a private conversation? We have important matters to discuss regarding your future with this company. The restaurant erupted in whispers and shocked speculation, but Maya could only focus on the impossible reality that giving a stranger her jacket might have just transformed her entire life. In Patricia's office, surrounded by performance charts and corporate metrics, Maya sat across from the most powerful man in her professional universe, while her mind struggled to process the day's revelations. I imagine you have questions, David said, settling into his chair with the same careful movements she remembered from the night before. I don't understand how this happened, Maya admitted, her voice still shaky with emotion. Last night, you were just someone who needed help. Last night, I was exactly who I am today. The only difference is context. David leaned forward, his attention focused completely on her. I built this company from nothing, starting as a busboy in my uncle's restaurant, Casa Miguel on 5th Street. I remember what it feels like to be overlooked, dismissed, treated as invisible. Maya's breath caught. Casa Miguel? My father worked there. He was a cook, Roberto Johnson. David's eyes widened with recognition. Roberto was your father? He made the best pozole I've ever tasted. He was always kind to the teenage busboy who couldn't speak Spanish properly. I used to wait there after school, Maya whispered, memories flooding back. At the table in the back corner, doing homework until Dad's shift ended. Table 12, David said softly. You always ordered your homework papers so neatly. I used to bring you breadsticks and milk. Maya stared at him, 15 years collapsing into a single moment of recognition. You're the boy who was always nice to me. You made sure I had something to eat while I waited. And you were the little girl who never complained, even when your father worked double shifts and you had to wait for hours. David stood and moved to his desk, opening the top drawer with reverent care. He withdrew a small, faded piece of paper, a child's drawing in crayon showing a simple restaurant with stick figures and the words, "Thank you," written in careful block letters. You gave me this the last time I saw you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I've carried it for 15 years, first in my wallet through business school, now here in my desk. It reminded me why I wanted to build something better. Maya's hands trembled as she recognized her childhood artwork. I remember drawing that. You were graduating high school, leaving for college. I wanted to thank you for being kind to me. Your father died not long after, didn't he? Maya nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. I always wondered what happened to you both. When Roberto stopped showing up for work, my uncle said there had been an accident. David carefully placed the drawing between them. I never forgot either of you. Your father taught me that real hospitality comes from the heart, and you showed me that gratitude can be expressed in the simplest ways. I planned to test our staff's character, but I had no way of knowing who would pass that test. I certainly didn't know the little girl from my uncle's restaurant had grown up to work at my own company. Your kindness was completely genuine. His voice carried deep conviction. Maya, I've been troubled by reports from our locations. Staff who've lost sight of what hospitality truly means, managers who prioritize profits over people. I needed to see our values in action. And you think I demonstrated those values? You demonstrated something we can't teach in training programs: genuine compassion for another human being. That's either in someone's heart or it isn't. David's expression grew more intense. I'm offering you the position of assistant manager for guest experience, developing service training programs that emphasize authentic care over scripted responses. Maya felt the words hit her like a physical force. Assistant manager represented a promotion of 3 levels with salary and benefits that would transform her entire existence. Why me? She whispered, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. Because character matters more than experience. Technical skills can be developed, but the instinct to help someone simply because they need it, that's the foundation of exceptional service. I don't have management training or business education. You have something more valuable. You understand that great service comes from seeing customers as human beings deserving of kindness, not just revenue sources walking through our doors. David checked his watch. I told Patricia I'd return in 20 minutes to address the team. They're probably wondering what's happening behind closed doors. They returned to the dining room, where virtually every employee had found excuses to remain nearby. Maya felt their stares burning into her. Curiosity, envy, disbelief, all struggling to process this unprecedented development. Everyone, please gather around, David announced, his voice commanding immediate attention. I have an announcement that will significantly impact this location's future. The staff formed a semicircle, faces displaying the full spectrum of human emotion as they awaited news that might determine their professional fate. My evaluation of this location began several weeks ago when I started dining here regularly as an ordinary customer, David continued, each word carefully measured for maximum impact. What I observed concerned me deeply: inconsistent service, staff who treated customers differently based on appearance, a loss of the core values that built this company. He gestured toward Maya, who felt attention focus on her like a spotlight illuminating her smallest flaws and greatest strengths. Last night, Maya Johnson demonstrated exactly what we want to see in every Chen Restaurant Group employee. She noticed a customer in genuine distress and offered immediate assistance without knowing his identity or expecting recognition. But sir, Sophia spoke up, her voice carrying defensive desperation, we all work hard to provide excellent customer service. We follow all the protocols. Do you? David's question sliced through her protest with uncomfortable precision. Because I've spent weeks observing interactions that suggested otherwise. Staff who smile brighter for well-dressed customers. Employees who've reduced hospitality to mechanical transactions rather than human connections. The uncomfortable silence that followed was deafening. Maya watched recognition dawn on faces around her. Memories of their own moments when convenience had trumped compassion, when efficiency had mattered more than empathy. Which is why I'm promoting Maya Johnson to Assistant Manager of Guest Experience, effective immediately, David announced, his voice building to a crescendo that would be remembered long after today ended. She'll be working directly with me to develop our new Heart of Hospitality initiative, proving that exceptional service flows from genuine care rather than corporate scripts. The announcement detonated through the room with seismic force. Maya felt her knees buckle as the full implications cascaded over her. Real salary, management authority, opportunities she'd long ago stopped believing existed for people like her. Furthermore, David continued, Maya will be creating training programs for all our locations, teaching other employees that the most important qualification for hospitality work isn't found in any manual. It's the willingness to see and respond to human need. Applause thundered through the dining room, a complex symphony of genuine celebration, obvious shock, and barely concealed resentment as everyone struggled to process how the restaurant's most overlooked employee had become its newest leader. Congratulations, Maya, Patricia said, stepping forward with a smile that fought desperately to reach her eyes. This is completely unexpected, but clearly well-deserved. I always knew you had something special, mija, said Rosa, the veteran server appearing with tears streaming down her weathered face. You never stopped treating people with kindness, even when the world forgot to show you the same courtesy. I was just doing what felt right, Maya replied, her voice soft with wonder at how dramatically her world had shifted. That's exactly why this happened, Rosa replied with deep satisfaction. Good hearts always find their way to recognition, even when it takes longer than it should. As the crowd began to disperse, conversations buzzing with speculation that would fuel restaurant gossip for months, David approached Maya with an expression of quiet satisfaction mixed with something warmer. There's one more thing, he said, his voice dropping to a more personal register. Maya, I hope you understand that my admiration for your character extends beyond professional appreciation. Last night, you reminded me that extraordinary connections can begin with the simplest acts of human warmth. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks as she realized his interest encompassed more than just business mentorship. I think I understand, she replied, meeting his eyes with growing confidence. Later that evening, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from David. Thank you for proving that kindness is never wasted. Looking forward to changing the world together. Maya smiled, slipping her phone into her jacket pocket. Tomorrow she would return not as the invisible busgirl, but as someone very visible. She had learned something profound. The most important qualifications aren't found in training manuals, but in the courage to care when no one seems to be watching.